is character and integrity. If you don't have character and integrity, I don't care what you say you believe, it doesn't matter. You don't have character and integrity. So first and foremost, that should be the primary quality of a candidate. The second thing is obviously qualifications. You need the qualifications to do the job that particular position you're running for is required. You need leadership ability. I know there are times, have you ever heard that everybody wants to be a leader fan? I can't remember the name of the song right now, but there are all these people popping up wanting to be the leaders. And have you ever seen those who are running around saying they're a leader and you look, nobody's following? We need people in office who have leadership ability. And then, quite frankly, you need people who have the right worldview. I do not care what people say. How you conduct yourself is directly related to what you believe. It is. It's really that simple. And so I think you have to look for those qualifications in candidates and making sure, one of the problems we have today recruiting is that it is easy to get people to run for office. It is very difficult to get really good qualified people to run for office these days. Now there are those who do it, but they pay a huge price and it's a sacrifice. And so, in your recruiting, I think that's something to keep in mind. And of course, filing starts in just a little over a month. And so we need to make sure. I've got some candidates here today, and I'm excited about what you guys are doing up here in this area because I think you're on the verge of turning over government here. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Many of us who've been active in the party for a number of years are frosty on top. And the main thing, of course, in Rockwall, we have a great YR. But the big deal is we need that group from 18 to 45 that elected Obama. We've got to reach them. They don't have a clue what change, they wanted change, but they didn't know, they weren't expecting this. And the thing is, how do we reach that group? Because that's who we need in here.
Right. Well, let me tell you a couple of interesting things. I've watched early voting day by day in the last election cycle, and I decided to watch it by age. And I divided up voters into 18 to 35, 36 to 45, 46 to 60, and 60 and above. The results astounded me because I expected these huge numbers of young people to come out and vote for Barack Obama. It didn't happen in Texas. In fact, what happened was your age pretty much depended on the voting level. It was directly proportional to age. The largest group that came out was 60 and above. The next largest group that came out to vote was the 46 to 60, and so on and so forth, which I thought was very, very interesting. You're absolutely right. You've got to find those voters, but they're not voting. They are looking. They're very cynical. I've noticed. I have a lot of excitement when I meet. We've got some great young people coming up in the state of Texas. We just need more of them. But that being said, they are very bright, but they are watching, and they want to see what people do, not what they say. And I actually have some thoughts about that. I wanted to share a couple of things which may work in with this. I think Americans generally take pride in our Constitution and our system of government, but we don't trust concentration of power. And we've proven with good reason not to. And there is a check and balance in our system, but quite frankly, the best way to make sure that your values are being reflected and the people that you are backing are elected is to be involved politically. And, obviously, everyone's taken into account in government, but by and large, government by the people in reality is largely government by the politically active. And I say that because there are a number of ways to participate, and the net effect of your activity on public policy, you have 20 to 25% of those people who are completely inactive. They don't do anything, they don't vote, they may complain, they may talk, but they just don't do anything politically. They have zero effect on what happens in the government. Then you have about 20% who are what I call voting specialists. They vote and they do nothing else. They have some effect, obviously, but quite frankly, very little. Then you have the community activists. They're heavily involved in the community, but they're not really involved in politically. Now, they're going to have more impact on what goes on in the community because of that. And then you have about 15% of people who are what I call political campaigners. All they do is work in campaigns. They don't get involved in their communities really. And they're going to have a pretty good effect. But that 10% of the people who are complete activists, they're engaged in all political activities. They provide a lot of the personal and leadership because they're involved in both in the politics of their community and the community itself. Those are the people who have far more influence on public policy that actually far exceeds the proportion of them to the population. Now, I tell you that because I'm going to tell you tonight something you may or may not have heard, but this is the real nature of politics. When most people get involved in politics, they think they should win because they have better and more honest candidates, they have better ideas for our country. But in the real world of politics, simply being better does not win elections. Working more effectively does. Morton Blackwell, have any of you heard of Morton Blackwell, founder of Leadership Institute, one of the icons of the conservative movement? Morton Blackwell actually said being right in the sense of being philosophically correct is not enough to win. He said that political success is determined over time by the number and the effectiveness of basically your activists on any given side. And I think that's true because over time, the side that best understands and uses effective political techniques and tactics and organizational technology, and what I mean by that is organization and communication. Those who are organized and those who communicate their ideas in the community, those are going to be the people who win. And the other side is going to lose no matter how good or how right they are. And so I think we owe it to our philosophy to win. And winning in any contest requires knowing the nature of the fight, or in our case, the nature of the election. And so I think when we start talking about reaching out beyond those people who are politically active, whether it's to young people or to non-traditional Republican voting communities, you look at leadership, and there is a relationship between leadership and effectiveness. And I don't know if any of you have ever heard John Maxwell. He does some amazing things on leadership. But he said true leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. It's not a title and it's not a position, because quite frankly, a title or position only gives you a little more time to show whether or not you have leadership. So it's amazing to me when you look at a party, it really would depend on the voluntary cooperation of other people, and that is the true test of leadership. And I want to just tell you that real leaders hold power, not just position. And in a political party, power inside that party goes to those who recruit and lead others. Now, I have the mindset about leadership that when you raise the boat, everybody is raised up, as opposed to some of those people who tear everybody down trying to make themselves look better. And I really think that's true. I think you recruit others, you train others, you lead others, and that's when the whole boat is lifted up. And so I think it is important as grassroots activists, especially county chairman and precinct chairman, that we are looking for people to mentor. You know, one of the things I think that that people often treat young people like their children. They're not. Treat them like the adults they are. Mentor them, bring them in, give them something to do. You know, there's nothing worse than people who volunteer or want to get involved and they're never asked. Do you know that's the number one reason why most people don't get involved? They are never actually asked. Most of them would. I wanted to talk about party activity because I know that there are a lot of things going on, and some of you are involved in the Tea Parties. I've spoken at Tea Parties. I've spoken to Tea Party organizers. I think one thing that is distinctly American in the political system is organization of popular participation. The one political institution that was created in America is the political party. And that's why I believe through parties is the best way to get involved and have real influence.